Om Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham karishyami Siddhir bhavatu me sada Om Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vitvishavahe Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bhagavad Gita is looked upon as a revelation. There are two types of knowledge sources. One type of knowledge that we acquire in the world is basically knowledge we get from whose sources our own sense of perception. What we perceive, either it is through the naked eyes or through the microscope, telescope, it is what we call perception becomes the primary source of knowledge. And perception is followed by extrapolation, postulates, and experimentation, and finally some conclusions. This is how scientists work. This is how researchers work. This is how various disciplines of knowledge have come about, where with your observations, with the observations of humanity, not today, for so many generations, they discovered things that they made it available to humanity. Archimedes' principle, law of mechanics, quantum physics, these are all what? They're all born of a basic frame called perceptual knowledge. What if there are things to know in the universe which your perception has no role to play? We look upon perception as the strongest means of knowledge, but what if there is something in the universe that is available to know which does not begin with perception as your starting point? Are there things like that? It is only where there is perception, there is inference, there is extrapolation, there are postulates, there are experimentation, there is conclusion, but the starting point is perception. You take away the very starting point, Is there anything outside of your perception which is meant to be known? If there is, it belongs to either somebody else's perception, not mine, maybe my other human family. No, it's no human family possible. Okay. Then maybe the other animal kingdom. Like dogs see things that human beings don't see. They have a range to hear that we don't. So there are other life forms which also responds to what we call perceptual knowledge, which may be connected to physical eyes or sounds, sniffing, smells. It's still perceptual knowledge. There is a type of knowledge which does not depend on human perception to be grasped. Its starting point is not human perception. That knowledge whose starting point is not our own body mechanism called the physical eyes or the sense, any of the 5 sense perceptions. If there is a knowledge which exists that does not depend on this one for a conclusion, that means of knowledge is called revelation. That source of knowledge is called revelation. And that revelation, what kind of knowledge does that revelation give you? It gives us knowledge that we can never find out from our what tools we have, we cannot find out. Because any human discovery starting point is perception. Think about it afterwards, not now. Now just listen. I'm presenting a proposal to you. And if you are convinced of this, moving forward will be easy for me. And so we are looking at a knowledge which is revelations. If it is revelations, then the validity of that knowledge, how do you validate it? Like, that this is a book, the eyes see, right? How do you validate that this is a book? Can your ears validate? Can your nose validate? Can your sense of touch validate? No other means of knowledge can validate what this means of knowledge says. What eyes can do, ears cannot do. What ears can do, nose cannot do. Each means of knowledge has a track. And the only way to validate is, if you have a doubt, maybe you can't see properly whether this is really a book, then get extra power in that same means of knowledge, put some thick glasses, and then say, oh yeah, this is a book. Huh? But all you can do is solidify, make more powerful the same means of knowledge. You cannot take another means of knowledge to validate this. So for validation of a means of knowledge, you use the same means of knowledge. This is one point you need to note. Not only that, what eyes can see, how do you know your eyes can see? Because I can see. When I open my eyes, I see. Suppose there is somebody who did not have vision and went through a surgery and was, the blindfold is still there. And this person has been told, once this surgery is over, you will be able to see. The doctors have declared. And so this person has gone through the surgery, and now time has come to really see whether the surgery worked. And his blindfold is being removed. And finally, everything is taken off. And the doctor says, okay, the great moment has come. Open your eyes and see the world. And this man says, doctor, promise me that I'll be able to see. Promise me. How do I know I'll be able to see? Hey, you have to trust. No, but you have to prove to me that I can see before I open my eyes. I don't want to be disappointed afterwards. You need to prove to me. And doctor says, hey, you have to trust. I can't open the eyes for you. You need to open your own eyes. Open. Trust. Open. It's only after you open you will be able to see. Therefore, trust the process, right? Don't sit in fear that you won't be able to see and not open the eyes. What is there to be afraid? Don't be afraid. I told you, you will be able to see. Open. But you have to open. Because ears cannot see for the eyes. Nose cannot see for the eyes, only eyes can see for the eyes, and therefore trust and open. When we work with a revelation, where your senses are not your source of knowledge, source of knowledge, means of knowledge itself is the words. Words are the means of knowledge. The teaching is the means of knowledge. And so the Veda says, trust and allow yourself, surrender to what is being said. Suspend your own mind and your own thoughts, your own judgments. Just see what is being said. Don't go on judging as you are being taught, where you will ask and say, oh, I don't think so, this is proper, I'm not sure. If you go into a judgment mode, you're not seeing what is being said. And therefore, to really enter into a revelation, to come into a study of the Gita, it is a sacred work. It is a knowledge given by the higher altar, and therefore we need to receive it with faith and trust. Suspend our own belief systems for the time being and receive the teachings with faith and trust. And so with this, the Gita means a song of the Lord. Gita means a song. song-like. There is a chant. It's a beautiful chant. The whole philosophy is in a poetry, It's not a prose text. It is poetry. Because it's poetry, if you memorize the chant, you have memorized the philosophy, And so we chant this. It's a very soothing. Sanskritam has something about its sounds, sound vibrations. And so in these words which are revelations of the Lord when He incarnated on earth as Lord Krishna, these teachings were given. It was found, I would say, the teachings were envisioned as Lord Krishna was teaching Arjuna in a battlefield. This was envisioned by a sage. His name is Sage Vyasa, who penned the teachings, who wrote this great work. It's called Mahabharata. The bigger work is called Mahabharata, which is made up of 100,000 verses. It is longer than Iliad, longer than Odyssey put together. 100,000 verses, poetry. The longest poem in the world is Mahabharata. And in that poetry, which is of a royal family through multiple generations, and many, many other sub-stories are woven into it, in that the Gita is like a jewel. It's a diamond. In that there is a chapter in which 700 verses appear. This chapter is called Bhishma Parva, and the 700 verses is what we call the Bhagavad Gita. The 100,000 verses called Mahabharata is not a scripture, because that is given by Sage Vyasa. It's all happenings, stories of this royal families and so on. Fascinating story. But in that there is one character, one incarnation. He's the incarnation of the divine in one generation that happened in this land 5,000 plus years ago. And that incarnation is Lord Krishna. So whatever Lord Krishna spoke becomes the revelation. Okay? And as a revelation, the question is, what is the knowledge in this revelation? What is it about? Well, it has, in general, the Bhagavad Gita, we have in this country an older revelation called the Veda. The Veda is the oldest, in fact, revelation of humanity. It's been declared by historians and people around the world. The oldest scripture of humanity is the Veda. They date it to more than 10,000 years ago. In India, they will go to infinitum. And this Vedic tradition Veda is revelation. So it's a body of knowledge, and as a body of knowledge, it has two topics that it talks about. One is about life activities, about human beings' pursuits in the world. What you do, why you do, what you do, what we desire, where we want to go, what are our goals, achievements. People are in search of name and fame, for power, for money, for wealth, for lands, for so many things. And the Veda as revelations is an esoteric knowledge, and therefore it gives you esoteric means to be successful in the material plane. Things you desire, that you fulfill them, that your desires don't remain unfulfilled, you don't remain frustrated. So the Veda supports through esoteric rituals and prayers, fire rituals and so on, and with that for individual desires, desires for society, desires for humanity. For example, there is drought somewhere. A whole village is suffering because of lack of water. And then in the Veda, there will be a ritual, a fire ritual. And if these rituals are done by that community, rains will come, is a promise. So you cannot say, how much will it cost? What, X amount? X amount, you first sign an MOU that rains will come, then only I will give you the check. The believers will say, you keep your check with you. We don't care whether you die in the drought. Why? Because it's about trusting the process. It's about trusting the very system which says, do this ritual and you will see the consequence. If I don't have a basic faith, that Veda is not for me. The ritual is not for me. And so, one side the Veda promotes so many, hundreds and thousands of rituals. It's a highly ritualistic culture. Fire rituals, prayers, because we have so many desires. Somebody who could not have a progeny, a couple who wants a progeny, they will do certain fire rituals called Putra Kameshti Yaga. Rain did come, Kariri Yaga. There are different things for different purposes. Okay? So Veda supports fulfilling desires, but what if you don't have any of these desires? You're not looking for anything in the material plane. This is not my path, this does not make me happy. I want something more spiritual. I want to know who I am. I want to discover my soul, my life journey, why I am here, where am I going, who is the divine, how do I get to know him. I am driven by something deeper. I want that. I don't want any of these corporate pursuits, material pursuits, money pursuits. I don't care to have my own boat and ship and a Ferrari and so on. I don't care for any of it. Okay. The Veda says, you don't care? All right, I have something for you too. You are my boy, you are ready for a different type of revelation, which is beyond perception, like the other. This was esoteric for material lens. This other revelation is called Vedanta or self-knowledge, Brahma Vidya. This knowledge that you're seeking, there is an answer for it, you will never know it in your level because you believe you are immortal. You don't know your higher self. That higher self is revealed to us by the higher altar, by the higher being, through the Veda. And therefore self-knowledge is the second path, the self-knowledge path. The Bhagavad Gita is likened to the Veda because it is completely teachings of self-knowledge. By learning the Gita, you learn about yourself, your own soul. Okay? So it is a transcendent knowledge, a knowledge of the transcendent being. It transcends the physical frame. It is a knowledge of the higher being, beyond the mortal frame. That knowledge of the higher is knowledge of your own soul, is the way the teachings are going to be revealed. And also, to have this knowledge, I must be the right recipient for it, A knowledge of that dimension. Am I ready for it? I don't know. Am I equipped for it? Do I have the wherewithal? Do I have the right attitude? Do I have the right mind? So what is the right mind? What is the right body? What is the right attitude? This forms the second topic of the Gita, called Yoga Shastra. One is Brahma Vidya, the other is Yoga Shastra. The Yoga Shastra refers to attitudinal, mind-based, body-based, discipline-based changes, so that I become a good receptacle to get this higher knowledge. In this coming few weeks, we are going to see both the self-knowledge and the tools that are necessary to be imbibed, both. Okay? This exactly is the topic of the Veda. This is exactly the topic of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay? This is in the shortest synopsis I can. I can warm you up to what you are entering into. All right? And to start this process with this book, I need to give you some background. I need to present to you some wonderful story. A historical story that leads to the context, which creates this context for the Gita to begin. And so here, first of all, the Bhagavad Gita is divided into 18 chapters. 18 chapters. And in a sense, the Gita is called Shoka Nivritti Shastram. A revelation. What's the outcome? What's the result of this learning of 18 chapters, 700 verses? What do I get out of it in the end? It says, Shoka Nivritti Shastram. Once you study the Gita properly, with proper guidance, at the end of it, your sorrows and afflictions of this world, of your life, will disappear, will be gone. Will be gone. And therefore, we say it is a revelation that gives you the highest for your human journey. Secondly, the Gita is also a Dharma Shastra. Dharma Shastra means it teaches us what is Dharma, what is right, what is wrong. It is this human head alone which has this eternal conflict. Right and wrong, right and wrong, right and wrong. From childhood we keep hearing, hey, this is right, this is wrong. Honey, don't do that, that's wrong. This is right, that is wrong. This is right. Anything, the whole education at home and school is about right and wrong. Many of us are still confused about right and wrong in spite of 30 years, 40 years into life. We still get confused. What is right, what is wrong? This is called dharma, adharma, right and wrong. Well, sure, killing somebody is wrong, yeah. So we have wrong which is very drastic wrong, and we have right which has a certain, clarity. Speaking truth is right thing to do. Okay. You have this visibly wrong and visibly right broad line process. Still, if you go deeper into it, you find it's not so clear cut. It's not so black and white. A very big cross adults carry in life is your most loved ones, the dearest of dear ones, where you both first thought that you think alike. You walk alike, you talk alike, you do everything alike. That's why you fell in love, no? Over time you find how different you are. Different is okay, but soon you begin to find out what you think is right, he thinks is wrong. What he thinks is right, you think is wrong. Within one family itself, these right and wrong parameters are so different. And you begin to question, hey, what is right, what is wrong? Doesn't that happen to all of us? And invariably, we are such strong, solidified egos that we never ever doubt that we are right. And we are always convinced that the other person is wrong. Rare is that moment where I will say, oh, you know what, I think I am wrong. There again, I think I am wrong. I think I made a mistake. Because I want to be right always. So what is this human peculiar, experience of right-wrong experiences? It is the most fascinating subject. Dharma is the most, to me, next to Vedanta, Dharma has intrigued me from my childhood, It has caught my heart from my childhood, Dharma. Because this right-wrong is very, very fascinating. You can never come with a common base of right-wrong unless you cross the paradigm. This has been my final conclusion. I've looked into this subject in so many ways. You need to cross the material frame to really arrive at the ultimate right. Because the ultimate right is beyond moral opposites. It has nothing got to do with moral opposites. It's a change of paradigm. We will look into all this in detail. I'm just throwing words right now. But the dharma is a conflicting subject. And very, very beautifully, the Bhagavad Gita begins with this hero of our story, who is right now not a hero. His name is Arjuna, and he is a man, a very man of society, a man of success, a man who was ever successful in all his ventures. He is a prince, belongs to the royal family, a great warrior, powerful, hero. Everybody looks up to Arjuna, because where Arjuna is, there will only be success and victory in wars. And this man, handsome, smart, and has multiple wives also. He marries different princesses when he goes conquering kingdoms. Not an ordinary person. Our story revolves around this young man. And he is a man of justice. He does everything right. He won't fight a wrong war. A good husband, a wonderful brother to his elder brothers, younger brothers, a good son. He has it all. He has his life made. So the story begins with this person. So let us look into what is the story. Because in this story is the context that the Gita creates a context for us to know what kind of qualification or attitude one requires to be able to expose oneself properly to the teachings, to the revelations. I must have a right mind for this, for it to be powerful in my life. And so here is a very interesting story of this royal family. It's called the Kuru race, Kuru Vamsha, Kuru race. And we are looking at this one generation where the king is a blind man. Being blind, the oldest son in the family becomes the king. And this oldest son in the family, he turns out to be blind. And if one is blind, one cannot be the king. One cannot govern the kingdom. And so the throne is passed on to his younger brother, whose name is Pandu. These are three brothers, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and third is Vidura. And so the kingdom is given to the second brother, who's physically well. And the law of governance says that in this generation, the kingdom will be ruled by an able-bodied prince. Now in our story, it is a second brother, Pandu. But when the next generation is born, when they have their children, there is one possibility that the older brother's oldest child can get the kingdom back, so that this lineage, the oldest one's lineage, will be the rulers. Only if, when these children are born to two of them, if this man's son is older than this second man's son, then even though he is ruling, the kingdom will go to the older one's older son. Understand? This is a law of the Dharma Shastra. And so in our story, what happens is, when the oldest blind king could not rule the kingdom, and the kingdom was given to the younger brother, of course he was not happy. He lost his power. And this unhappy person hoped that his son, his child would be born and would be older, and he would get it back. Next generation will come back to him. He had wanted and hoped for that. It turns out that as the story goes, there is some challenge in the family, and this Pandu is sent away to the forest for 1 year exile. He goes to the forest with his 2 wives, Kunti and Madri, 2 wives. And in the forest are born 5 children, 5 sons, called Pandavas, 5 sons. In the kingdom, this king is temporarily controlling the kingdom for 1 year until the brother comes back. He has also children born to him, they are young. And his children, the oldest is also a son. But he finds out that Pandu's oldest turns out to be older than his oldest. And this is really the second round of life disappointment. His son is Duryodhana. Pandu's oldest is Yudhishthira. So now the kingdom is going to go on in the lineage of the younger brother. And this begins the story of war, where this older blind king's children and that lineage, they want to somehow keep this kingdom. When Pandu went into the forest, they were free to enjoy the royal kingdom. There was nobody else there ruling. A great tragedy befalls, big tragedy in the forest. There is a forest fire, and in that forest fire, Pandu dies. This is a whole movie now. In 10 minutes I have to complete a big movie. Pandu dies in the forest fire, and his younger wife was very attached to him. She decides to give up her life. She cannot bear the loss of living a life without her husband. And so the older queen, Pandu's older queen, is stuck with 5 children, 3 of her own and 2 of her co-wives' sons. As a widow, 5 bright kids, she comes back to the palace. And in the palace, the blind king's children are born and they are growing up. And as soon as these 5 return, who are the rightful heir to the throne, when they grow up, the jealousies begin to simmer between the cousins. These Dhritarashtra, the blind man's children, and their jealousies grow over the years. So they grow up. These 5 and these are not 5, these happen to be 100. 100 cousins and 5 of these. And they just are not together. Not together means physically together, but there are big challenges to face. Over time, the children grow up into young men, and time comes for the oldest of Pandu's son to be crowned the king. When time comes for that, there is a lot of scheming and planning. A lot of trickery, is created, and there are some very powerful turns that happen, powerful situations that arise, and we will see what happens. Because, why this story? Because in this story of these 5 brothers, Arjuna is one. And how Arjuna, what happened when his oldest brother was to take the throne? What happened afterwards? And how the 2 families ended up in the war front, where the Bhagavad Gita begins. And therefore, you're going to have some more of story time. We will close this session here, and when we restart, we will look into the Mahabharata. It's a great epic of India. And what we see as a storyline, there is so much of the cultural intricacies that are still alive in this country. And so we will look at the story a little more before we begin the first chapter. Okay? I close here. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.